All right, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show, your daily dose of objective truth in a world of confusion and lies. We're doing something a little differently today. Obviously, this week, huge week, President Trump just destroying Kamala Harris in the presidential election. But before that occurred, I read a column by Lee Smith. Lee Smith is a best-selling author. He's got a new book that's coming out, Disappearing the President, Trump, Truth Social, and the Fight for the Republic. You can find it at encounterbooks.com. Find him online on Twitter at Lee Smith DC. But he read a column, and I got to tell you, I've read other people's work, but for some reason, when this guy when he writes, I trust him. I trust him more than others when I read his work. And he wrote a column entitled "Is the Left Preparing for War If Trump Wins?" Now, obviously, President Trump has already won. And so I wanted to have Lee Smith on to talk about this because honestly, the stuff that he's written about absolutely terrifies me if I'm being blunt. So Lee Smith, welcome to the Carl Jackson Show. I so appreciate you taking the time to come on to the
Carl,
program.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You're going to give me a big head, but thank you very much for your thanks for your kind words. It's nice to know you.
Listen, they're absolutely warranted. And I got to tell you, to write some of the stuff that you write, I think it takes more than talent. I think it takes a bit of courage. And so I appreciate you coming on. Let me do something. I want to do something a little different. I want to start towards the back of the column that you wrote, because some of this stuff is just so unbelievable. It's almost hard to believe that we live in this America where the left is just so just crazy and nuts and quite frankly evil, if I'm being truthful. But I want to start here. You write about a woman by the name of Rosa Brooks, a former Obama Pentagon official whose 2020 wargaming with the Transition Integrity Project has been credited by the left-wing press for its accuracy. Can you talk to us about who Rosa Brooks is and what she was a part of?
She was an official in the Obama administration's Pentagon. Since then, in 2020, that's really the key. I mean, they really rolled this out before the 2020 election. There were big articles in the Washington Post. I mean, it was all over the place. And what they were saying, their main purpose was to prepare the ground for people to accept the results of the 2020 election, right? Remember, that's when they introduced all these new voting procedures like mass mail-in voting, like the drop boxes, like all the ballot harvesting, and people didn't know what to do. It looked strange. And you'll also remember people who questioned the integrity of these different procedures. They were banished from social media, thrown off Twitter, thrown off Facebook. So her job was to say all this is totally legitimate. That was one part of her job. The other part was to alert people on the left saying, here's what's going to go down. What's going to happen election day 2020 is it's going to look like a Trump victory. As it gets later into the evening, the things will change. They called that red mirage, blue shift. And indeed, that's what happened. But if you look at those 2020 scenarios, they talk about everything from mass protests to violence. A lot of what they did was, it wasn't a forecast. It wasn't a prediction. They were setting the stage for what was going to happen. Everything from January 6th to Trump being thrown off of social media. So it's really astonishing. So the left really pays close attention to what Rosa Brooks has to say. For 2024, she did this.
Okay,
Can you?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Lee. Go right ahead.
For 2024, they did the same thing. Democracy Futures Project. And what she did, again, war game, different scenarios. And they rolled this out as well. Carl, it's the same thing. It's a real media rollout. They published 4 different stories the same day, July 30th, saying what was going to happen after the election. They anticipate a Trump victory. What they say is what will happen, and the scenario that I really focused on, what happens after Trump becomes president. And what they're talking about is there will be such massive violence in the streets of American cities that Trump will be compelled to invoke the Insurrection Act. At that point, different senior military officials will refuse to obey Trump's orders. Other military officials will follow them. But what we're talking about now is a split in the military. And you know, anyone who's seen what what national violence on a massive scale looks like, recognizes that splits in the military, it's an extraordinarily dangerous thing. So what they're talking about is they're laying the groundwork now for violence in American streets, and also this dangerous situation at the Pentagon. And Carl, I don't mean to alarm people. I don't mean to be an alarmist, your audience or you. I just think it's very important that we understand what we're dealing with and that we're prepared. And I'm not saying that we're preparing to be violent ourselves, but so that people are calm, so that people know what to look for, and just so that people are alert.
Lee, I got to tell you, that's one of the reasons that I like you and trust you, because whenever I read your writings, I never get the sense, because they're so detailed. Your writing is so detailed. I never get the sense that your goal is to alarm, but to make people aware. I'm going to go back to the beginning of your article, because I think you laid the foundation. But basically, I mean, these people literally want the military to be able to refuse orders that, from Trump, were he to lay orders, were they to, get chaos, be chaotic and stoke violence in the streets and all this. If Trump had to call out the National Guard, they want military officials to say, no, we're not doing that. And basically, kind of go against the president. It's a really scary scenario. And I want to come back to that. But first, I do want to get your reaction on the election, and then go back to the beginning of your column and just lay some more foundational work here. Does the election and the way in which Trump won so decisively, in your opinion, change any of this?
I don't think so. I think that the left has been anticipating for a while. I mean, they have their own polls that they looked and they saw what was happening. I think that for a while they've anticipated a big Trump victory. So no, I don't think it. I don't think it does change this narrative. Of course, I'm very happy. Because I think that Donald Trump is ready and prepared to right the ship of state, the disaster that we've seen over the last 4 years unfolding, and what happened during his first term, when they obstructed him at every possible turn. So I'm very enthusiastic, and I'm very optimistic, especially the different people who've joined forces with Donald Trump. And Carl, I just look at him like, wow, it's just amazing. All the hope and optimism, all looking at all this light on the other side of the bridge. We're going to make people healthy again. We're going to make the government efficient again. It's just amazing stuff. And I'm sorry that a lot of people on the left, as we're already seeing, responses to Donald Trump, the election of Donald Trump. There are already a lot of people who are very upset, who are very angry, and I wish they were participating in the excitement and enthusiasm, because it's for all Americans. It's not just for Donald Trump supporters. But I don't think that's going to. I don't think that's going to stop their project right now.
And I think that's very important for the audience to understand, because I think Trump gets it at this point. I'm just not sure that the American people understand just how evil and depraved the left are. I mean, Kamala Harris came out and gave I guess you could call it a concession speech when she mentioned the word fight, fight, fight. I mean, the word fight, fight, fight was pretty nasty, according to the left, when Donald Trump said it after they tried to kill him. But not when she says it in a so-called concession speech, which was no concession speech at all. We have less than a couple of minutes left in this block. So let me get started. At the beginning of this column, I want to get your response to this. But right from the beginning, you talk about how they label Donald Trump as an aspiring dictator who would use the military, the national security agencies, and is against his political rivals. And you say that's why they've been likening him to Hitler. It wasn't an attempt to impact the election as much as it was kind of a clarion call to establish these conditions for violence. We have just over a minute before the break.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of a longer trajectory that goes back to Trump's first term, when they said that he'd been compromised by Vladimir Putin. So the way they've been trying to paint Donald Trump for 8 years now is that he's fundamentally somehow un-American. So that's what they meant by Putin. And now, right, they're calling him a wannabe dictator, a fascist. They liken him to Hitler. So, yeah, I really think that's preparing the ground, especially they're addressing the military. And they're saying, look, when push comes to shove, what side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side of democracy, where we are? Do you want to be on the side of the Constitution, or do you want to be on the side of Hitler? So, yeah, I think that's what's going on. I think it was not designed to just smear him before the election. There's so much noise already. I think it was really directed at people. And remember that article, John Kelly, this is a military guy. And so I think that they were speaking to the military here, and that's what's going on.
Okay, I'm speaking to Lee Smith. He's a best-selling author. You can get his book at encounteringbooks.com, and the latest upcoming book is Disappearing the President, Trump, Truth Social, and the Fight for the Republic. We'll be back in a few. I want to iron a little more of the details out of this column because what Lee Smith writes about, I think it's credible, and frankly, it's scary, and you should be aware. We'll be right back. Hey, Carl Jackson here. A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving MyPillow with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss, and it is your gain. For the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices. That's just $14.88, but it gets even better. For a limited time, they're offering their entire classic collection at wholesale prices. So you can get a queen size MyPillow for just $18.88 or upgrade to a king size for just $1 more. You can get the body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. Go to MyPillow.com and use the promo code Carl, C-A-R-L, or call 800-858-0263 to take advantage of this wholesale pricing for the first time ever. And on top of that, receive free shipping on orders that are over $75. They have never been offered this low before. There are limited quantities at this price, so the limit is 10. And once they're gone, they are gone. Again, go to MyPillow.com, use the promo code Carl, or give them a call at 800-858-0263. Again, use promo code Carl to get the standard MyPillow for just $14.88, the lowest price ever. All right, welcome back to the Carl Jackson Show. Again, I'm joined by my guest, Lee Smith. Make sure you go out and get his new book at encounterbooks.com, and his latest upcoming book is Disappearing the President, Trump, Truth Social, and the Fight for the Republic. Lee, when we were offline, you were talking about Kamala Harris's concession speech. And I have to admit that I listened to it and I was like, this isn't really a concession speech, but this is the best we're going to get. This is going to be an unforgettable speech. But you said there's more to it. What did you think about it?
There's a couple lines in that speech that are worrisome. And I mean, you know, a lot of what I do is I read stuff closely. I listen closely, different phrases, different things, different analogies that people are making. So I don't want your awesome audience to think I'm, you know, a little far out. But look, there was an important line about there when she said, we don't follow the president. We follow the Constitution. I mean, so, okay, that's right. We have a Constitution. It's the supreme law of the land. But the line doesn't fit in a concession speech, right? It's just like, he's the president now. He won. We're going to unify. There's no reason that you have to say something like that about we don't obey.
Such a good point.
We don't obey him. We obey the Constitution. And here's what that ties into, I'm afraid. Here's the echo that I heard. You've probably heard this too, when Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland said recently, this video has been circulating, when he said, well, here's what's going to happen. We're not going to certify the vote. We're going to raise the 14th Amendment, Section 3, which is about the whole insurrection stuff, that no one who's been involved in an insurrection against the United States holds office, right? And so it's not just that Raskin said that, but remember, this is what the state of Colorado and 15 other states, Maine and others, tried to use to keep Trump off the ballot in those states. And the Supreme Court said, no, that's not what the 14th Amendment, third section is about. So he's on the ballot. So what I'm saying is there's lots of noise out there. There's lots of evidence that they're really trying to gin up more activism. We remember what happened in 2016. after Trump was elected and with Trump's inauguration, there was a lot of violence in Washington, D.C. We remember what happened in the summer of 2020, after George Floyd. And we saw how blue cities, including Governor Tim Walz, blue areas let these fires rage. Again, it's not to be alarmist. It's just to keep people aware and let them know there's a lot of different pieces of evidence and a lot of loose noise that's circulating out there that should make us attentive.
And I gotta say this, Lee. I mean, we're not dealing with your uncle and auntie's Democrat Party. I mean, Kamala Harris is a radical. I mean, she couldn't even express. I don't think she's the brightest bulb in the bunch, but she couldn't express what she truly believes because the American people would have caught on to her. Not as if, I mean, and I guess they did somewhat just based upon the results of her policies and Joe Biden's policies. But I want to read this real quick and get your response. This is directly from your column. You say the Democratic Party research and media reports show that many senior party officials and operatives are preparing for the possibility of a Trump victory. And obviously, you wrote this before the election. Accordingly, planning is focused on undermining the incoming president with enough violence to rock his administration. Prominent post-election scenarios forecast such widespread rioting that the newly elected president would be compelled to invoke the Insurrection Act. And you spoke about that. I'm just circling back because I want people to understand what's going on and help to connect the dots. With some senior military officials refusing to follow Trump's orders, according to the scenarios, the U.S. armed forces would split, leaving America on the edge of the abyss. That's terrifying.
I think one way to understand what's happened, what happened last night with the election, what's happened over the last several months. I mean, Kamala Harris was Barack Obama's candidate, right? The Obamas, I believe the Clintons too, but they were pushing money to Kamala Harris in 2020, and she had a disastrous primary run. Nonetheless, they made her vice president of the United States. This was Barack Obama. So one of the things that I think is happening here is that, look, it was also Barack Obama who was managing the ongoing plot against Trump. It was his intelligence chiefs who set up Trump for Russiagate, right? A lot of people talk about Hillary Clinton and it was the Clinton campaign, right? But James Comey and John Brennan were involved. Those were Obama's spy chiefs. So, insofar as we're looking at an operation run by Barack Obama, and insofar as we have to look at different things that are so odd, even though the media has made them seem normal. Barack Obama is the first president who stayed in Washington in a century, right? And the only reason that Woodrow Wilson, the last president, did was because he'd had a stroke. So I think that one of the reasons that this is a volatile situation is because Barack Obama and perhaps aides of his as well are concerned about different investigations. I'm not sure if they would investigate the former president, but certainly Obama spy chiefs will be. I believe that at least they'll be interviewed, and those interviews will be aggressive. The other thing is, I mean, if this means that Barack Obama is losing power, because this loss should force Democrats as well to say, hey, you know what? You lost. And of course, in politics, you hold power if you're a winner. If you lose power. So I think that's one of the other things that's making this, that's setting the stage for a potentially volatile situation.
Yeah, and it makes total sense because I'm like, you got 4 mansions, Barack Obama, you and Michelle Obama have all of this money. Why are you still so invested in Washington, D.C.? Leave already. Right. But he's so invested. And also this, I mean, we listen to the left calling Trump Hitler and calling us Nazis and all this kind of stuff. And we just kind of, I mean, we don't take it lightly, but we kind of shrug it off. Oh, whatever they can do to bring out the independent voters, you don't want Hitler to be, but it's not that. They're war gaming. They're literally setting up this scenario by kind of playing. It's like psychological warfare, perhaps. When they stage this assault, if you will, on Trump's presidency. It's like, oh, okay, he had it coming.
No, I think you're absolutely right. And this has been one of the reasons for this very destructive rhetoric. And again, it goes back to 2016, but labeling Trump basically a traitor because he owed his presidency to Vladimir Putin. I mean, all of this language said that it legitimizes violence, right? The 2 assassination attempts on Trump. And you saw what happened. I paid a special attention to the first assassination attempt. And the left, after pro forma denunciations of violence says, well, it's all Trump's fault. If he didn't use violence himself, or if it weren't for January 6th, then they wouldn't have tried to go after him. So and what that did was that was not just rationalizing that attempt on Trump's life. It was it was setting the stage for future violence against Donald Trump and as well Donald Trump supporters. So that's exactly what this language does. Like, well, I mean, if these guys are Hitler, if they're fascist, if they're this or that, if they're going to steal democracy from us, then our fight is righteous. So, yeah, it's very dangerous. And you'd like to think they'd at least cut it out for all these people like Obama and Harris, at least paying lip service to unity now. You'd like to think they're like, by the way, y'all, let's tamper down the rhetoric. They're just Republicans or they're Trump supporters or whatever. They're not Nazis. They're not fascists. They're Americans like us. We go to school with them. We go to work with them. We live in the same neighborhoods. Let's all settle down. But we're hearing nothing like that right now.
Oh man, such a scary scenario. What does Trump need to do day one? We only have a couple of minutes left. In your opinion, once he's in?
Well, I mean, my understanding, I spoke to some people who've been in, some people at Mar-a-Lago, not the president, but they say that one of the most important, or the most important appointment in this administration will be Attorney General. Without an attorney general cleaning out the Department of Justice and bringing in, excellent lawyers himself, 20 top lawyers or something like that, cleaning out a lot of the bad actors, that nothing will get done. And so Mar-a-Lago, the guys at Mar-a-Lago are focused on that. They know they have to get the right attorney general. They know what's happened over the last 4 years. I mean, undermining rule of law, the perversion of the rule of law. So we need a Department of Justice that's going to set that straight, right? That is going to look at, that is going to treat all Americans equally under the law. And that's not been happening for 4 years. So that's the most important thing. I believe that Donald Trump needs to get in order.
Wow.
And I agree, rather. I should say that's what they're thinking. And I should say that sounds absolutely right to me.
All right. We have less than 30 seconds left. I suspect that's why the left demonizes Project 2025, because it helps a conservative administration with staffing their offices and with a game plan.
I don't know why they kept going off on Project 2025. It seemed so abstract and vague to me. They made it sound like, I mean, it's not like people were biting and saying, wow, Project 25, that's so super scary. They tried to make it scary. I think most people were just like, I don't know, it just sounds like some dopey DC think tank thing, and that's what it is.
We have to leave it. We have to leave it there. Lee Smith, thank you so much. Is the left preparing for war if Trump wins?